Welcome back to the channel, everyone. Today we've got a large project ahead of us. We've been hired again by another client to create a built-in gas fireplace for their living room. So let's get into this video. Good morning. It is 7 a.m. We're getting the Jeep loaded up. Gonna try to beat the traffic and hopefully the Home Depot rush. Let's get going. Yes, we are starting a brand new job today. We're gonna be building this built-in fireplace for a customer. So very excited about this, very, very excited. First thing that we have to do, we have to deal with the framing. So we're gonna go build the framing to the specs that the company that they're purchasing the gas fireplace from is requesting. And here we are with the traffic. So even though I technically told them between 9 and 10 and I'm leaving at 7:30, yeah, maybe they'll let me come early. Parking lot's kind of empty compared to normal. Usually there is no parking at all here. So let's go get some lumber. We just made it to our customer's house and they've been so gracious to let us work out of their garage since it's raining today. So this is the space right here where we're going to be building this right here. The game plan for this morning is to work on all of the measurements and the layout of this thing. We're gonna go utilize blue painter's tape. I'm gonna reference my drawings. We're just gonna take extra measurements and just double check to make sure that everything is gonna be placed in the right spot. All right, so we got our fireplace all taped out. This is kind of our depth right here. These two lines, that's the rough opening for the fireplace. And then this gives a visual as to the height and the rough opening. And then we've got our space between the top of the fireplace and the bottom of, or roughly where the mantle is gonna go. Somewhere between like 12 inches and 15 inches. And then we have our TV. Brand new 5-pound box of screws. More than enough. All right, we have the first side partition ready to go and built. Before I move on to building the front side of this framing for the fireplace, I'm gonna go ahead and attach the side partitions, and lucky for me, they line up almost exactly on the studs in the wall. So we'll plumb them up and get them attached. All right, it's been a few days since we've worked on this project and a couple of things have happened. Number one, we had an electrician come out and take the outlet that was gonna be directly behind the fireplace and move it up, and we put it in the framing of this new fireplace built in. Number two, the fireplace company came out and installed the gas line and put the fireplace in. That was yesterday, and I was able to finish up the remainder of the framing and kind of just brainstorm kind of the next phase. So now that all of those major components are complete, it's time to move on to phase 2 of this project. And I guess we could call this the actual like built-in look. So that's going to be the face of this fireplace, which is the shiplap. Today, and we've got all that right here. Today we're actually probably going to start with, we're going to do this like faux brick surround just on the edge of the fireplace. So we'll have to do that first. And we've got our cement board and all of our faux brick and all the mortar, all that good stuff. Don't have any grout just yet because I'm not sure on what color they want, but that could be something that we do another day. But yeah, let's get going. Today we're gonna focus on doing this brick first. So we've got all of our stuff here. Got our cement board, got our screws, got our mortar, premium mortar. We use this a lot. And then here's the brick. So kind of an off color, red, a little bit of gray, a little bit of, it's kind of a little, it's red, but it's kind of like an orange hue, if you can tell. So something like that. I kind of just did a rough layout with the brick, and I think I'm gonna have to get more, but for the time being, we're gonna go ahead and cut the cement board and just kind of get started with the substrate for this first.
Wow! Thanks, Mr. White. And let me also say this, a project of this nature takes a lot of forethought and a lot of pre-planning or pre-production if you're a musician. It's important to get all of these details and know what the size of all of your objects are. I don't know a better word than objects. The size, the dimensions of all of your material, and how it's all going to come together, just to make sure that everything fits really well, if that makes sense. I don't know how else to say that.
All right, we are ready to start putting the brick on here. I think I'm gonna have to eyeball this because there's not any spacers I can use. This is our center line. It's 50.5 inches, so 25.25 right here. And we're just about splitting the two bricks. So that's kind of our first seam, first gap. And then I've laid it out and tried to eyeball it the best that I can in order to get it to our corner pieces here. So some really good news. So I have a shim here, wood shim. It's just a little bit, it's just a skosh over 1/4 inch, like a 32nd of it. Probably, it's a little bit, it's closer to 1/4, but it's between that and 5/16. If I use this to gap my bricks, it gets me just ever so close to exactly where I need to do it, or where it needs to be. So I start here in the middle and then work my way out on both sides, and we've got a pretty even spacing. And that gets me all the way to my edges, exactly where I need to be.
We are good for the spacing of the shiplap on the side of the brick, but when it came to the brick, I think I may have gotten a little bit lucky. I think this is something that I could have pre-planned a little bit more extensively with, but it works out fine. And all of our gaps and our spacing with our grout is gonna look really good. Again, we're using this premium thin set, so it's ready to go. You don't have to mix it with water, which saves on a lot of time. It's a little bit more pricey, but I prefer this over the mix. And then again, the shim that we're using is about 1/32 of an inch over 1/4 of an inch. So we're between 1/4 and 3/8. And 3/8 is generally the gap between bricks. And these bricks are not faux bricks, they're actual bricks. They're just cut in half. And you can pick these up at Lowe's or Home Depot. I got these at Lowe's. It was about $70 for a box. And I believe there's like 50 in a box, somewhere in that ballpark. So I had to get 2 boxes. So we'll let this sit overnight. We'll come back the next day and get ready for the grout. Before we do that, we're gonna apply this stone and tile grout sealer. This is gonna help protect the brick. It's gonna protect that surface, make it easier to clean in the future. But then also, if you've ever done any tuck pointing, it can be kind of messy at times. Now, we're not gonna have to deal with that. We're not tuck pointing in this case. We're actually filling in those gaps. But in the off chance that you make a mess, it's really hard to clean off brick, especially it can stain it, it can discolor it, and we do not want that. Well, this sealer is gonna help in that regard. While that dries, we're gonna go ahead and prepare our grout. We're using the color Alabaster, which is a nice beige sand color, and it's gonna look good with this brick. And we're also gonna be using a grout bag as opposed to a float. You don't wanna use a float in this case. You want to get the grout in between the gaps and only the gaps, not on the brick. So we'll start out by just doing a few gaps at a time, and we'll use a brick jointer. This is gonna be a 3/8 inch brick jointer. And this is a tool that's very frequently used in masonry, specifically in brickwork. It just ensures that the mortar is thoroughly pressed into the joint to help weatherize it. In this case, we're not worried about weatherizing it. We just want to have the appearance of good masonry, good brickwork that you would see on a house or an exterior structure somewhere.
So now that the grout is complete, it's time to move on to, I think, the shiplap. I think we're gonna do shiplap next. And it's supposed to rain here in just a little bit. but I think I'm gonna risk it. I think I'm gonna go ahead and set up right here on the front porch. That way it's easy to get in and out, and I can move that setup pretty quickly. All right, I've got my first cut here. It's about 50 inches, and then I did a 45-degree back bevel on it, just so that it would sit nice and tight up against the cement board.
Now that all of my cuts are made for the front of this, everything's got that back bevel. It's gonna sit really nicely on top of the top portion of the grout where the brick is. It's gonna cover that cement board. It's gonna be a really nice tight fit. Not to bore you with extra details, but just making sure that everything is measured up, and we're starting from the center, working our way out, getting everything plumb and level and just looking really good. All right, first phase of our shiplap is complete. I've got my stud locations marked for future reference. There's another one right there. The only thing we have to do for the front is we got to do two different pieces. This first one's gonna have a little bit of an L shape, and then we'll have to rip this one down. Same thing over there. My measurements worked out pretty well. We're sitting at about 1.5 inches from the edge of the cement board on both sides. So we should be pretty good. All right, now we're moving on to this section. As you can see, we've got a little bit of area that we're gonna have to rip down. So here's how we did it. Take a little scrap piece, just like this one here, and we'll make our mark right here on the other side. It's about 1 9/16, 49 3/4. So we're gonna keep it the same as these, which was 49 3/4. There. A small portable table saw would be a lot easier, but I don't have that, so the track saw is gonna have to work. And also the sawhorses that I'm using are not the most stable, so making these cuts, it was a little bit difficult, but we got it nonetheless. So again, we're gonna take off that inch and whatever I said, and then bring it to the same height as the shiplap that's to the right. So the shiplap that goes from the ceiling to the top of the fireplace. And we'll also create a little back bevel as well. So again, that small sliver sits really nicely up against the cement board.
Wow!
Thanks, Mr. White. And we'll do the same thing to the other side. It's just like making a grilled cheese sandwich. Cook one side, you flip it, and cook the other side. Put a little salt on there, nice, a little bit of butter. American cheese. This is the part of the project that I thought was going to be the easiest and take the least amount of time, but it actually took the most. The brickwork, that was what I thought would take the most time, but that was a breeze. Getting all of the details and the fine cuts and going in and out and running for this and that is what took so long. Doing the crown molding, measuring, cutting, and fitting the shiplap around where the floating shelves were gonna go, the secret door, all of that stuff really started to add up.
Y'all, it is way past my bedtime. It's after 5 and I'm tired, so I'm gonna go ahead and tear everything down. Made some pretty good progress today, not as much as I was hoping that I would be able to make, but the shiplap and all of the unique measurements and all the unique cuts, all the setup and all that stuff, that takes forever, as opposed to, like, you know, mortar and grout, which is pretty straightforward. You would think that doing the shiplap would be easier and not take as much time, but unfortunately, in this case, that was not the case.
It's the next day and we're moving on to the crown molding, and you may know this, that crown molding can be tricky sometimes, especially if you have a miter saw that doesn't allow you to set the crown molding up against your fence and cut it only at mitered 45-degree angles. I love this miter saw, but its limitation is that you can't do that. And so I've got to lay the crown molding flat, and all of my cuts are both mitered and beveled. In the grand scheme of things, it's really not a problem, especially if you've got a layout of your cuts, your inside corners and your outside corners. It's just a little bit more time consuming. Once we lay a good bead of caulk for all the gaps at the ceiling, we're going to move on to painting. We're using Pewter Green by Sherwin-Williams. Our paint base is the Signature series by Valspar, and we're gonna do Eggshell. And let me tell you, if you've watched this channel for quite some time, if you've been a part of this and seen all of our videos, you'll know from me personally, I do not like to paint. I cannot emphasize that enough. But if you give me a really good paint color, a really good finish, and a really good paintbrush, I have to say, I feel a little bit different about it.
Well, good morning everyone. Today is install day. We spent the past 2 days working on the floating shelves and that carcass for the bottom cabinet. It's gonna go in that corner. Everything is dry and ready to go, so we're gonna go do a test fit. I'm pretty confident that everything's gonna fit pretty snugly, but we always wanna just double check before we start tacking away and drilling and all that good stuff. Cabinet. It's not supposed to look like that. We'll fix that in a minute. And then here are our floating shelves. We have to make a cut first before we install the cabinet, so letting this charge. And in the meantime, we've got our measurements and our height for our TV and for our mantle. The clearance based on our depth of the mantle from the top of this has to be at minimum 13.5 inches approximately. So as you go up, the depth of whatever you're putting on here can continue to go out, if that makes sense. The depth of our mantle is going to be about 5 inches, which is more than enough depth for the height. And we're sitting at like 18.75. So we're back at the house now, and we have the floating shelves inside. I've already got them sanded down and pre-stained. Here's one of them right here. It's looking pretty good. And then we also have the mantle constructed. So with the floating shelves, I chose not to grain match just because they're tucked away in the corner. You're not gonna see it. It's not gonna be a focal point. The mantle, however, is a focal point of this fireplace, and you kind of want to make a little bit more of an effort to make it look really good. So we did that. We cut down our plywood sheet to have this thing have a nice grain match, grain consistency. It's done with the glue up. There's still tape on it, but I'm gonna take it off. I'll show you real quick. So this is probably going to be the bottom side. As you can see, if you look really closely, my gaps weren't perfect, but you can burr it using like a major, huge screwdriver like this and kind of flatten everything out, smooth everything out. So it's not absolutely perfect, as you might be able to tell, but it's pretty good. This is probably going to be the bottom side. I think this one's going to be the top side because you can see my joint here is a lot tighter. But grain consistency, you can kind of see how this runs into that one. And kind of the same thing here. A lot of this grain running into the next bit. So it just makes it look a lot nicer, a lot cleaner, and a little bit more consistent overall. So as you can tell, we're making some pretty good headway today, and we are probably like 90% done with this. We've got the mantle installed, the floating shelves installed, and we're working on the rest of our shiplap. I'm gonna go run and get some more. So we'll get that cut, installed, and painted. We'll try to get the paint done this afternoon. And really after that, the only thing left to do is like minor touch-ups. The door, which my friend Adrian is building the door for that. Oh, and then the secret door on the side. So we're getting there. I completely forgot to record, but got the TV up and nice and centered, nice and level, all the good stuff. They've requested for no cables. So what we're gonna do, I've left this little cubby here. I'm gonna build kind of this drawer that comes in and out like this on some sliders that's going to house, you know, all of the HDMI stuff, the box for this TV.
Oh, young Justin, always so adventurous and willing to over-engineer something that just it doesn't have to be complicated. Yes, I can do this. I saw this on TikTok. Of course I can make that. Long story short, it didn't go as planned. And because I got peeved, I didn't record anything. So here's a recap of everything in the form of memes.
Do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth?
Rushing or dragging. So you do know the difference. If you deliberately sabotage my band, I will f you like a pig.
So just an update on our secret compartment. Ended up not working. I was not able to get the drawer slides to work, but that's totally okay. We've got a platform right here, and what we're gonna do, I've already built the door, gotta paint it. We're just gonna make a faux door that kind of sits in here. A couple of those little T hinges or whatever you call them.
So only a few things left here. We've got both of our doors. This one is the secret door that I'm painting right now, and then the cabinet door on the left. My friend Adrian built this for me, so very grateful to him. So we'll get those painted, and I'm also gonna add a small trim piece to the right side of the cabinet where there's a slight gap. It'll cover that. Then we're gonna attach the door, add the hardware, and we are done. Well, that's it, guys. That's the video. I cannot express enough how happy I am with this project, how proud I am as to how it turned out, and just really excited. I've been editing this video all day long and just watching myself do this job. It was a lot for one person to take on. Definitely took a lot longer than all of us anticipated and expected. It's the nature of the job. Sometimes that happens, but I think that the payoff was substantial. But yesterday when we wrapped up the job, like the homeowner, like she came and gave me a hug. They were just so happy. And it made me feel so content and so just pleased with my work. I'm not pleased with this. I just have to wait it out. Are you the howling boy? But yeah, it was a very HGTV moment. I wish I had caught it on camera, but anyways, thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, make sure you hit the like button. And if you're new to this channel, we make DIY projects just like this all the time. You can look through our page and check out other projects that we've done. But we're starting literally another job tomorrow. We're gonna be doing some board and batten in a bathroom, and I'll be filming a video on that as well. So if you wanna see that, hit subscribe, and we'll see you in the next video.